Good. Thank you. I welcome everyone back. I'm going to turn off my video because, as I said, I'm on a 4G connection and I look pretty much the same as my still picture. So thank you all for joining. I would like to, first, I need someone to confirm. I hear some echo. Is my audio fine or not?
Yes, you're fine, Doctor. Yeah, Dr. Sivarajan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, which seems to be a somewhat difficult operation, but let me see if I can successfully do it. Okay. So, can you all see the names of the panelists? Unfortunately, I need someone to say yes or no.
Yes, yes, we can now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we have a set of esteemed panelists today to discuss AtmaNirbhar Bharat. Pathak ji from DOT, I think he's been introduced previously here. Representatives from TCS, Saankhya, Niral, VVDN, and MBit Wireless. I'm going to start the panel by asking all the participants to introduce themselves and their organizations. I mean, DOT needs no introduction, of course, in the order listed, taking up to 1 minute each. So we'll start with Pathak ji. I mean, I think Pathak ji, we can almost skip the introduction. Pathak ji has been part of DOT for as long as I know, driving a lot of initiatives from industrial relations and so on. But that's only the title. As far as I know, he does everything, including DSI founding. I just want him to say a few words, whatever he'd like to tell us today.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
I can't see my video anyway. So I think I would like to thank TSDSI for this opportunity. AtmaNirbhar Bharat. I think it's very difficult top. One can say the heading itself. We are trying our best to make it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. I would request the chairperson to turn off the screen so that we can see the speaker on video. That would be great, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I am in charge of international cooperation in Department of Telecommunication, looking after WTO economic activity, as well as Telecom Center of Excellence and Export Promotion Council along with TSDSI. But one can say the major, my work has been the promotion of domestic manufacturing and exports. And presently, I am engaged actively in promotion of 5G from India. So I think this is the in brief I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pathak ji. Next, TCS. Akhilesh.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. And first, let me thank TSDSI for letting me on this panel. It's a great opportunity to interact with everyone. And I will defend my 3.5 decades of services to engineering education and IT industry through my introduction. So I served engineering education for about 1.5 decades, where I was teaching at BITS Pilani and later in a reputed engineering college under University of Mumbai. And since past 2 decades, I am serving the R&D of the IT industry, mostly in Tata Group and TCS, which involves the research and innovation, technology and product management, and standards and IPR related responsibility. And since past 3 years, I am also chairing the study group for services and solutions at TSDSI, which is a wonderful platform, as all of you know, of various stakeholders with vast backgrounds and experiences in ICT industry. And personally, I am very keenly interested in AI-enabled Bhagavad Gita research and vision to fuel many of the future technology products and solutions. And I thank you very much once again, and that should be sufficient for my introduction.
Thank you, Akhilesh. I now request Vishwakumara from Saankhya to introduce himself.
Thank you, Kumar. I would like to thank DSI for giving me an opportunity to participate in this panel. I am involved with Saankhya Labs. I'm the founder and COO of Saankhya Labs. At Saankhya, we are basically specialized in building semiconductor ICs and systems for communication, all based on SDR technology. We have built several systems in the past years in SATCOM and 5G. And we have significant investments in 5G, building new systems on 5G RE, both 5G RAN, both in hardware and software, and a lot of IP in this area. In the past 13 years, we have filed over 65 patents, most of them granted. That's our core competence in design and IPR. And regarding my background, I'm technology entrepreneur. Previously, we built a company called Smart Yantra, which was acquired by Genesis Microchip in 2004. And in 2007, we started this company specialized in SDR for communication systems, Saankhya Labs. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishwakumara. I now request Abhijeet Chaudhary from Niral Networks to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Kumar. And I would like to first thank TS Desai to provide me an opportunity and represent what Niral Networks is doing in this space, especially related to AtmaNirbhar Bharat, build local and go global. And a little bit about introduction about myself. So I have around 18 years of experience, especially on the tech space, and focusing more on the data communication and telecom. I've worked with companies like Motorola and Cisco, and have also worked with a couple of startups which got acquired. And Niral is pretty new company that we started last year. I mean, we are pretty young company, very much focused on developing an open network operating system which can be used for 5G. And our mission and vision is to enable the operators, telecom or internet service providers, to help them transition from being vendor controlled to be more vendor agnostic solution by, of course, using open and disaggregated networking products and systems. Thanks.
Thank you, Abhijeet. I now request Nitin Jain from VVDN to introduce himself.
Yeah. Hi, good evening all. Firstly, I'd like to thank all TSDSI and all eminent representatives over here with whom I am sharing this dice. Right. So to introduce myself, I am Vice President Sales in VVDN, taking care of 5G sales in India and the global market. VVDN is primarily an ODM, original design and manufacturing house, and we focus on end-to-end products, right? So from manufacturing to then your designing, and we are having all in-house facilities, whether it is the SMTs or molding tooling facilities or assembly lines, right? And we are the 13 years old company, and we focus on multiple business units, starting from your 5G networking, Wi-Fi, IoT, and other space. And we are the pure Indian company, so our headquarters is located at Gurgaon. Personally, on my career path, I worked with multiple telco OEMs and few telco operators in the past, and I worked as CTO and the sales head in few telco OEMs. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin. Lastly, I request Arumugam Govindswamy to introduce himself from MBit Wireless.
Thanks, Dr. Kumar. Good evening to everybody. Thanks for TSDSI to have me part of the panel. I'm the founder and the CEO of MBit Wireless. We are a fabless semiconductor company developing chipset and the software, the total complete solution for the client side. Personally, I've been in this wireless industry, wireless semiconductor industry for about 3 decades. Seen the world of 2G, now the 5G. Part of the initial 2G launch, the first ever Samsung phone born, a part of the team and led the team. So now part of the 5G development, which we'll discuss more in the the next part. So that's sort of where MBit is right now. Thank you. Hello, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Govindswamy. Okay, the audio is not clear. I hope you concluded. I didn't preempt. Okay, so now that we have introduced the speakers, thank you. I will now ask each of them a question, okay, to which they will have 3 minutes to respond. By the way, am I audible? This lack of feedback is disconcerting.
Yes, you're coming through fine. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Your voice is clear, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. I'm audible. Okay.
Can others hear me? Can others give me feedback if my voice is clear?
Yeah. Both Dr. Sivarajan and you are coming.
Okay, I think I am back. Sorry about that. Okay, so I think I'm audible. So the first question is to Pathak Ji from DOT. Okay, so my question is, I will try to show the question so that it's easier. Okay, our application window. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the question for Pathak Ji is, DOT has been instrumental in getting LMLC standardized through TSDSI. Your new telecom standards research and indigenization section clearly shows DOT's commitment in these areas. How do you intend to ensure greater collaboration in TSDSI to build the first Indian standards and later global standards for 6G? I mean, you can talk about 5G as well, but assuming 5G is done, 6G. So I will stop sharing. So I hope my question was audible.
Yes, sir. Your question was audible and we were able to see the question as well.
Okay, so Pathak Ji, I request you to respond. I've suggested 3 minutes. Of course, you can take as much as you like.
Thank you. So I think Department of Telecommunication has already given its National Digital Communication Policy, which for the first time says that India will be a technology provider. And I think LMLC standard as one of the candidate technology 5G is the first in that direction. So you have just told about the setting up of a SRI division, Standard Research and Innovation. But there is one more division called Network Technology. So in Network Technology, I think we have already funded the 5G end-to-end test bed. And I think government will be positive in investing in such projects subsequently also. One can say, you call it 6G, or one can say 2030, future network of 2030. So we are very positive. And as far as AtmaNirbhar Bharat, I think your heading is concerned. I know the market access and R&D, investment in R&D, these are the two main points. Why I told market access? Because I think market access is necessary, and then only even R&D by the companies in India. So for both, even the market access, we have the preference to make in India PMI policy. For R&D, we are still working. I will say it's not, very conducive for investment, but there is another scheme of spec also, in which that is for the components and semiconductor, and naturally investment in their EMC, we call it EMC infrastructure part also. So in similar lines, Department of Telecommunication is also working for PLI in telecom sector, and very soon I think we'll be coming with the PLI for the telecom sector also, which will boost R&D as well as manufacturing within the country of telecom development. So as far as other part is concerned, that
Sir, I believe he has a little fluctuating internet and he's getting connected back.
Yeah, I see that. So let's just wait for him to come back.
Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Maybe what you can do, you can try to switch off your video, and I could see some fluctuating internet from your side.
Hello.
Mr. Pathak, can you hear us?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Pathak ji.
Okay, okay. So I think that's what I am saying, and very you may be aware of there is a NTI PRIT also, training institute also for skill development. So as far as the Department of Telecommunication is concerned, it has taken all the necessary steps for making India a technology provider, and I think we'll be ready to assist working through TSDSI. Even funding also startup and SMEs for their participation in national as well as international programs like 3GPP, 1M, 2M, and ITU. So I think this is what I have to share.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pathak ji. Okay. So now I'm going to randomize the choice of speakers because I don't want it always to be Govindswamy last. So the next speaker is chosen randomly from this list of 5 speakers is VVDN, and for VVDN the question is the following for Nitin Jain. VVDN has made 5G disaggregated CU, DU, and RU, which is what I understood. Is VVDN making sure that these products can be used in building AtmaNirbhar 4G networks upgradable to 5G in India? I mean, this is just a lead up. You can tell us about what VVDN is doing for AtmaNirbhar Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So if you see that VVDN, as I introduced, that VVDN is a ODM company who design and develop the products, right? So we are developing the products for our partners, for OEMs in this space. And yes, these products are well capable for the AtmaNirbhar Bharat, right? So taking from the 4G to the 5G upgradable. And VVDN is working to deliver next generation 5G acceleration solutions. So we started investing in 5G almost 2 years back, where we started developing our own IPs, right? And we developed a lot of 5G IPs, keeping in mind that when the 5G era will come, the time to the market for the OEM should be less, right? So we can able to provide the services faster, so that the product should be rolled out very fast, right? So as VVDN, right? So our vision is to make VVDN a premier electronic engineering and manufacturing company, right? We want to transform and create the opportunities. Our focus is that yes, we can develop the products in India and take to the global market, right? As Mr. Pathak rightly said, that now the government is coming out with multiple policies, right, where they are helping us in rolling out different PLI scheme, different subsidies. Although we expect much more from the government, as our PM said that India should be Atmanirbhar, we should become vocal for the locals, right? And we are basically moving ahead in that stream and making 5G a right choice. 5G, you all know that the era today in India that we are basically deploying 4G networks, which is upgradable, going to be upgraded to 5G networks. And all the operators are concerned about the TCO and all. So all the companies, might be ODMs or the OEMs, keep in mind that yes, whatever the capex we are investing today, right, we should take it to the future-proof investments, right? So keeping in mind, we developed our own IPs. We are having in-house team who can develop the entire products, starting from your FPGA or ASIC or your RTLs and then RF capabilities, We are having in-house mechanical capabilities and everything, right? So we are developing the entire product and then taking it to the market. Yes, we develop few RUs, DUs, CUs, right? So, on the radio side, which we are taking to the market through our partners, right? So that's a partner model which we follow, right? And yes, in the end, I just want to say that as our Prime Minister Modi has said that we should basically collaborate in an ecosystem and create an ecosystem in the India market, that we should create everything that is capable enough to take to the global markets, right? So we should collaborate with different companies, different partners, different OEM systems, different silicon vendors, right, to build the product, manufacture the product in India by the Indian company. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Nitin. I will now randomly pick the next participant while you see. So the next question is for TCS. So the question for TCS is a very well-known brand globally. You just exceeded ₹1 trillion in market capitalization and beat other companies, Accenture and so on in the ICT services space. How can TCS leverage your esteemed brand to help the Indian telecom vendors globally? So over to you, Akhilesh.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Okay. So TCS has a beautiful program called COIN, that's Co-Innovation Network. And this COIN platform is basically meant for working with the partners from the academia, as well as the partners from the emerging technologies. Emerging technologies, we generally call it ET COIN, that's Emerging Tech COIN. So idea is to stitch together the solutions leveraging TCS intellectual property and the IP coming in from the partners and take it to the market. And we also have the COIN Accelerator program, where we select the ET partners, means the emerging tech partners, for directly taking them to the customers. Of course, that goes through the screening. So COIN framework can certainly be leveraged to help Indian telcos in TCS. And apart from COIN, a lot of experience in TCS and the capability can be leveraged. For example, TCS has many of the solutions for the telcos, OSS, BSS, some of them are very, very well known. And TCS has experience of developing many of these solutions for the citizens, large projects like Passport Seva project. And also the TCS has experience of developing the many platforms, as TCS has a powerful digital platform for financial inclusion, for bringing up the bottom of the pyramid folks to the uplift them, and many initiatives have been done on this platform which could be very well leveraged. And also that things like TCS OIN platform for educational, very well known, and many other vertical services. So that way TCS has many of such platform services and the frameworks which can be very, very helpful for supporting the telcos. I suppose that answers the question.
Thank you, Akhilesh. Next, I'll again, just to make it interesting, pick the next speaker randomly. So it's Saankhya. So Vishwakumara from Saankhya. And the question to you is, Saankhya has been a key player in SDR and cognitive radio. How will this help us in building AtmaNirbhar 5G or 6G in India?
Thank you, Kumar. You can hear me, right?
We can hear you clearly. By the way, if you think you have a good bandwidth connection, feel free to turn on your video.
Yeah. So far, so good. Yeah, Saankhya, AtmaNirbhar is not new for us. We have been doing this right from the day when we started the company, because all our designs are completely built in India. And the semiconductor ICs we have, right from what the first version, Prithvi 1, we built, is all made of IP from India. And all our systems products are all designed in India, and both in SATCOM as well as in 5G, what we are currently investing. All the IP belongs to us, and we have filed over 65 patents on this. In any technology, of course, the leadership position is possible only if we hold the IPR, and all our activities have been directed towards that. And having at least few essential patents will only put us in leadership position in any of these areas. And in specifically in 6G, we have some key IPR which we feel is going to play a significant role in some of the new things that will happen in the 6G areas. And this, of course, is a continuation of the build-up from the investments we are currently doing on 6G, both in the Open RAN area, the current some of the IP that we are currently working on. And this is both in terrestrial networks as well as on SATCOM, because we have many of our solutions currently running all AtmaNirbhar. In fact, over 3,000 trains are carrying our satellite IoT solutions, which are continuously giving the location of the trains, which are fully deployed, running very reliably in the last few years. And on specifically on 6G, some of them are still in the works. Some IPRs are already been filed. So we see this as a new kind of new wave of IPRs we will be building in this area, and the new designs we will be having in 6G towards 6G. This 5G transitions to 6G. Some of them probably will come in some of the later releases of which will go into 5G itself. And a few of them would probably will be very, currently they look quite futuristic. That's why we feel it will be more appropriate for 6G. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vishwakumara. Now I will toss the coin between MBit and Niral publicly. I like this coin tossing thing. So it's MBit. So Mr. Govindswamy. I have to master this. Okay. Okay, the question for MBit is here. MBit is developing a solution for mobile broadband communications. What solution does MBit provide in building AtmaNirbhar broadband communication in India?
Thanks, Dr. Kumar. Let me give a little bit more broader view of MBit. MBit is a fabulous semiconductor company building solutions, which is chipset and the software for the client devices. So we started with 4G, now we are at 5G. We develop complete chip design from systems, algorithms, the RTL, the software, everything in India, right? So we technically it's the 4G chip developed in India, which is actually commercially qualified for the global markets. We have 4 classes of chipsets. One, the mobile broadband chipsets, which is primarily for client communications. There's 2 subdivisions. One, the thin modem, which can enable fixed wireless access, the mobile hotspot routers. The other one is a full-blown SoC, which is basically enabling for smartphone applications. So that sort of comes under mobile broadband category. The second category of chipsets, which is primarily for the IoT devices, where with billions of devices expected to connect to the cellular IoT network, we have a category 1 chipset, which is high bandwidth IoT devices, as well as a narrowband IoT, which is primarily for the many low bitrate communication cellular IoT devices. We have the narrowband IoT device, and also we have category M for global markets. So it's designed again designed in India for the global markets, though India is primarily looking after narrowband IoT devices. And the third group of chipsets, which is primarily in our roadmap for autonomous vehicle, which is essential part of the 5G for autonomous vehicle. And the fourth group of chipset is the edge computing chipset, which complements our modem chipset, which basically complements with the for edge computing, where it's 5G, with the AI, ML, everything on the edge, right? A lot of things, innovations coming along, right? So we provide the chipset and the software, all the way to the APIs, reference designs, to various set of applications. So with the current, today, the mobile subscribers, about 1.15 billion mobile subscribers in India, and expected about 2 billion cellular IoT subscribers expected in the future. The chips designed in India and manufactured in the global, in the world top foundries. We believe it be part of a critical part of a 4G, 5G, and beyond ecosystem, can enable these billions of smartphones and IoT devices, right? So that's where, so all the design happened in India. It's it's part of AtmaNirbhar. Is even prior to AtmaNirbhar, we have been doing this, and we are well positioned to enable mobile broadband, and also complete software, which is basically the digital and physical connections, where 5G has a various set of applications, from mobile broadband to Industry 4.0 to IoT. Our chipsets can enable all those different set of applications. Obviously, different class of chipsets we offer to the market. So that's where we believe that we enable our solution for AtmaNirbhar, particularly for the smartphone and IoT devices, which I believe that a significant impact, both economical as well as technological impact for the AtmaNirbhar community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Govindswamy. The last question is for Abhijeet from Niral, and the question for him is, Niral has been closely working with Indian operators for their disaggregation initiatives, to support them in the disaggregation initiatives. How has Niral been doing on this front? Abhijeet, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kumar. So, yeah, so I'll start by first portraying what is happening outside India for 1 minute, and then I'll come back to what is happening.
Sure. You have the floor. You can take it in whatever sequence. Yeah.
Okay. So before we started Niral, right? So we actually, the disaggregation is not new. Of course, it is new with some of the operators, but overall it has been there for probably around maybe around 5 years, but it's maturing. I mean, with the advent of more off-the-shelf commodity hardware being available, open hardwares, or white box hardware, that's what they call it. So before we started Niral, we were working with some of the operators outside India, and more as a consulting, we helped them to actually build some of their disaggregated product line, which is used mainly for packet, like routers and security appliances, where you take the hardware from somebody else, off the shelf, as example, VVDN mentioned there in ODM. Similarly, it can be some other ODMs from where the operators take the hardware, and they work with either their R&D team develops it themselves or works with a consulting company or engineering service company. So we were part of an engineering service company earlier which did that. So it is not new, and it has been there, and this definitely requires one key thing, that is all the operators need to have an R&D team. They may not be software engineers or hardware engineers, but they need to have an R&D team which focuses on that, has a product management team probably focusing on developing the product in-house, right? So that is one thing I found common. If you take the big names like AT&T to even the small names who were our customers earlier, have done that outside India. Now coming to the context of India, I see the same thing happening. I mean, maybe it did not start 5 years back, but it's probably started a little later, but that is happening in India too. There are very few operators, 3 or 4 operators which is there in India, and if you see most of them, if you deep dive into how they work, all of them actually have most of them have an R&D system or R&D team already set up, which was not there earlier, which was very uncommon to some of the operators which exist now. But in the last 2-3 years, there is an R&D team which focuses on such initiatives. Like disaggregation can be one initiative, using open solutions can be another initiative, maybe the controller may be another initiative, but overall that change is happening, and it is getting matured. I think it will take couple of more years, but we know, like for example, Geo acquired a company called Redisys, right? So well, that's not specifically, I mean, that was also done to actually ensure that they have built some IPs on the radio, I guess. So the radio stack, I mean, and the software stack on the radio, which Redisys really works on. So it has been happening for last 2-3 years, and it is getting matured. And one more thing that I wanted to point is that it's not only the telecom operators. I have been talking to a couple of internet service providers also, and that's the same there. I mean, all of them are setting, they have probably a small R&D team, but they are setting it up. They're pretty comfortable with the term open disaggregation, and even comfortable with the terms like open source. So they think that's how the things are moving. It will take, of course, some time, maybe a couple of years for the transition to happen, but people understand that it has to start at some point. They are looking at some pockets of the network where they can do the disaggregation. Maybe, for example, if you take a 5G, it will probably be the 5G access network, the access in the, I mean, like near the cell tower, and slowly it will move towards the core network. It will be a phased transformation, but they will do the initial new deployments which will come for 5G. Those new deployments, part of that will be disaggregated. And I see they are pretty open. They are talking about working with Indian companies. I mean, we know all the geopolitical issues which are cropping up nowadays, and also an important push from the government for AtmaNirbhar products build out of India, right? So, and of course go global too in the export side. So I see things are moving pretty good and very positive, and I'm very positive that in another 2-3 years it will be much more aligned, and we'll see a lot more engineering or Atman products out of India being, even from startups. I mean, of course, there are products like Tejas, for example, are already there in the service providers network, but even like startups like us, there will be not only us, but many more companies, startups. There would be pockets in the telecom operators or the ISPs network which will be using local technologies. And I mean, even they are very open to that. Thanks, Kumar.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Abhijeet. So I want to just outline how the remainder of the session will run. So there will be one common question now to all participants. I'll request Pathak ji to answer that first, and then I'll randomize the rest of the participants as I've done. I want to tell the audience to please ask questions. I think there's a questions tab which you can type in your question. Please indicate to which of the panelists your question is directed. After they have spent time answering my common question to all of them, which will come up, which will probably take about 10 to 15 minutes, we will go to the audience questions. I will end the panel discussion at 9 p.m. or when we run out of audience questions, whichever is earlier. So, but that should not discourage you from asking questions. So now the question, which is common to all the panelists, is the following. What is your top suggestion? And I would like only one suggestion for an AtmaNirbhar Bharat in the telecom sector. This is a TSDSI conference. But however, we can broaden it if you want to broaden it to a broader ICT sector.
Hello. Am I audible? So I think Atmanirbhar, it means that we have to generate at least demand for one India specific product. So that is, I think that if we can come up with some specific product developed by India, or maybe product developed in a specific frequency which India fights along with the world, that WRC, that this is the band we should, because in that case that product will drive the demand from India. So I think that is my one of the suggestions, that let us have one India specific product for the group. Thank you.
You can make more suggestions if you want. That only took 30 seconds. I just suggested one, but if you have anything else, please do feel free to suggest. If not, you can suggest later. I'm sure there'll be questions to you. Okay. So next, all of you are on the spot to suggest, and obviously the later speakers have a harder problem. That's why I wanted to randomize. So Abhijeet, you go next. What is your top suggestion for an AtmaNirbhar Bharat?
Yes, thanks, Dr. Kumar. So I think the most important part, especially I'll focus on startups. Probably I would like to represent most of them because I'm probably one of the younger companies out here. So I'll take that opportunity. So what I think what my experience has been that if when we startups, we build a product, right? Getting it really trial and getting more feedback from the customers is a key important aspect, which either we have to wait till the customer actually tries that in their network, which can sometimes be a long time, because we all know, right, the telecom, especially tier 1 telecom operators, the sales cycles can be almost 1 year sometimes. Even trials can really take a long time. But once the product is mature, if there is a test lab, probably from DOT or from as we discussed in the previous session, I think with IDRBT, or can be the 5G test lab, which are part of IRT and ISCs, or can be part of BharatNet, other initiative where our products can be tested. I mean, we are not looking at commercial, we are looking at really hardening the product, because we are talking not only about make in India, but we are also talking make in India and go global, right? So it has to be tested. If it is rugged enough to actually be tested in the Indian conditions most of the time, and for Indian kind of requirements, most likely it would work for the requirement for global customers. I mean, so that opportunity is very key, and looking forward to that, because I heard about the 5G lab and IDRBT, what they are doing. Of course, we are also working closely with IDRBT now. That I think is a huge opportunity, and it will really help most of the startups. The second thing which I had, probably, sorry Kumar, I'm going beyond one, but I'll take the opportunity to talk on that. So, is that as part of TSDSI, we have started a open source group. We have, in fact, a lot of members from TSDSI has joined that group. I mean, we are almost, I think, around 20 member companies. I mean, it is a mix of companies which are from India as well as from global, but having an Indian presence. So we are together trying to harness and basically see what kind of open source can be used for 5G and beyond. So this is a very important thing, and it will really help, especially I think for rural, whenever we build rural connectivity solutions, right, for Northeast or for even the villages in the rural areas of India. If we can use that open source solution, which we are building as a group together, where, I mean, our competitors are collaborators, like some of our competitors, when you work in open source in a community, we collaborate and build the solution, right? So the competition is the next thing there. Like the more priority is basically to get the solution, the open source solution up, because it is more of collaboration. So if we can build solutions, get the input from all the other companies, member companies, and build India-specific solutions, which the operators or like DOT can enable us to put in the network, any kind of network. I mean, it can be the telecom, or it can be the smart city, any kind of network, rural connectivity, BharatNet, etc., etc. And that would be a good impetus, and that probably is a good way or initiative which the TSDSI open source which has started now. It can be leveraged if we can actually productize those and deploy those solutions in some of the networks within India. So that's the second suggestion I had, and probably, yeah, that's where I'll close on.
Thank you, Abhijeet. The next speaker is Nitin Jain from VVDN. So Nitin, what is your top suggestion?
Sir, if you see, if we really want to make Indian companies and we want to make AtmaNirbhar Bharat, we should have end-to-end ecosystem available in India. So as VVDN, as we are progressing, we are trying to make that ecosystem. If you see, we have developed all the engineering facilities in-house, R&D facilities. Then in the manufacturing, we are having all the facilities. We are having mechanical facilities. We built our own testing labs also, where we can able to do some kind of pre-certifications also, right? So that kind of ecosystem we have already developed, and we are working to enhance it in the future. But there are few systems which are still not available to complete this ecosystem. Government has to work. How can we invite Qualcomms or Xilinx or all these silicon vendors to India to manufacture in India? How can we invite the component vendors to have it in India? Today, the components are not available in India. We have to import from other countries, might be Taiwan or some other country, US or somewhere, right? So how we can build that ecosystem, how government can help us, right, in building that ecosystem, which can actually enable us for the AtmaNirbhar Bharat, right? How can we get the fab units, right, PCB fab or others, right? So that is something we need to work on. And as all the panelists are here, we should come out with our something, right? We should rise above our personal goals and work as a team in India to complete this ecosystem, to make this ecosystem more stronger. Then only we can not only build a world-class product only for the Indian market, but also for the global market, right? And secondly, government has to come out with something that, okay, so there are few OEMs who are actually doing the R&D outside India, but then tying up with some EMS houses in India and getting a label of Make in India, right? So operators has to give preference to the Indian companies who are actually designing and manufacturing in India, because they are having the IPs in India itself, right? So these are the two suggestions where we need to work on to complete the ecosystem in India, and then actually we can able to say that yes, we are working towards AtmaNirbhar Bharat and will become AtmaNirbhar Bharat.
Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you.
Now I choose between the remaining three. So in its TCS, so Akhilesh, what's your suggestion for AtmaNirbhar Bharat?
Thank you. And looks, my suggestions is in line with one of the audience question. So let me read that question first. What are the main challenges, or say the biggest challenge a small company SME has to overcome to build a complete telecom product locally? And where do you seek support from to overcome this? Maybe part of it I'll address. So according to the suggestion I have let us see what is the main challenge we have. The biggest risk for the investment into any of the 5G IoT, for that sake, any of the telecom or any of the ICT solution, is the gray zone of not knowing actual royalty outflow for the solution. The challenge actually arises because of not having complete and clear patent landscape for the solution. We don't have that visibility. And there are three key factors I see why this visibility is not there, why we do not have a clear patent landscape. The first reason is not the patent owners not declaring their SEPs, their standard essential patents. Some of them may be the members of various SDOs, but still they don't want to come under the FRANT regime, or there may be varied reasons. Some are non-members. There is no law to make them feel obligated to declare. Second is the members or non-members tend to declare the false SEPs, means there actually something declared as SEP which is not an SEP. That is because they are randomly declared, not so careful exercise without mapping to the actual technical specifications of the standards. So that's the second problem. First, I said, was the not declaring the SEPs. Second is declaring false SEPs. Then the third problem we face is not declaring the non-SEPs, means your alternative technology, which you have. People are very, very choosy about, generally don't want to declare that to the standards bodies. Again, of course, the interest and the reasons may be different for the different owners. And these three things make complete mess of the patent landscape, which is totally unclear. If we want to make an investment, we are not sure till we really start flowing into the market what is actual, how deep in the water we are about our investments and what returns I'm expected to get. So this sometimes leads to very, very undesirable situations that the new ventures have to either sell themselves to their incumbents or stay out of the market, which definitely is not the expected outcome. And what could be done? Actually, I remember one of my lawyer friends who always tells that why the law should be there. And I think a little bit of legal framework, little bit of policies tweaking at a country level, and tweaking of the IP policies for the SDOs and strict adherence to those policies can change the situation very, very favorably. I remember about this lawyer friend used to say, the purpose of the law is to render predictable the outcome of the human plans and activities. He used to give me the example that if you want to cross the signal, if the signal is not there, you can't even plan crossing that. You'll be standing on one side of the road. So we should not be averse to law. It is very much needed, and that is required in this situation. So what can be done? What is my suggestion? That if SDOs strictly adhere to the policy that any and every IP, which is every patent which is declared to the SDOs, they should accept it only when it is completely mapped to the technical specifications of the standards. A patent owner must be able to do that exercise. Otherwise, definitely he should not declare it. Second, so that is on the SDO front, which is a doable thing. Second, which is somewhat of a challenge, not so straight, but the federal laws can sort of bring this kind of commitment to the IP owners that, look, if you want tomorrow your patent to be in the market, and if it has a mapping to the standards specifications, then you must disclose it to the respective SDOs, at least some of the SDOs. So that is a difficult enforcement, but once the culture builds, people see there is enforcement difficulty, it can be done. And now let us see what are the benefits of doing it. If the SDOs do it, say for sake, if TSDSI first start cleaning from the home. So if TSDSI takes this as strict policy for IP, that all the declarations should be completely mapped to the technical specifications, otherwise no declarations. So that means the credibility of the SDO has gone very high. Second, what happens to the IP owner, to the patent owner? The patent owner will find it very easy to enforce it into the market. Their IP becomes more enforceable, definitely a great benefit. Because otherwise, if the IP owner has to make thousands and thousands of the implementations, he will have to do very expensive analysis for go-to-market, whether it means freedom to operate and everything. That would be very, very expensive exercise. So that saves a lot of revenue for him too. What happens to the new ventures? The new ventures find it more predictable in terms of their investments and returns. So it is a win-win-win situation for all the three, which is exactly desirable, and that's my key suggestion. So one thing which is straight doable is the CEO should not worry about losing the members, but they should enforce this strict IT policy, which has no major challenge in implementing, but once it is understood. Thank you very much. I'm open to any questions now or later on.
Yeah, we'll take the questions later on. By the way, thank you, Akhilesh. Where did you see this question? I see the panel discussion too.
Oh, in the question panel, Dr. Kumar, this I think Dr. Babu Narayan. If you scroll up.
Oh, it was in the other panel. Okay.
Yeah.
Because in our panel, I don't see any questions.
Oh, okay. No, there are many other good audience questions are also there. We can take them.
Okay. So I request the rest of the panelists to go through the other sections. But I'll be looking for the panel discussion 2 questions. This remark is addressed to the audience. So we have 2 more speakers with their suggestions to come. So if you have any questions for this panel, please put them in panel discussion 2, and I will put them to the panelists. So we now have to choose between Saankhya and MBit, and it is Saankhya. So Vishwakumara, you are next with your top suggestion for AtmaNirbhar Bharat.
Thank you. So basically, the first suggestion I have is that we should enable Indian companies to invest more to create IPR, because it is not possible to have one standard, one patent, and then it becomes standard essential patent. When we only invest and create multiple IPR and multiple patents, one or few out of them would only become standard essential patent, right? Which means we have to invest significantly to create IPR, and that is not possible unless the investors, especially the VCs or all who are investing in it, is convinced that this is really going to see the light of the day and get revenues. For this, we need really improved market access in India. There is already the PMA and other schemes, but we see there are a lot of shortcomings in that, or in many cases we see there are many ambiguities. In fact, recently we have been responding to a tender where when we need to provide certificate saying that it has certain amount of Indian design and IPR, but the auditor, when they look at all the documentation from DOT or other schemes, it is not very clear whether we are falling above 50%, below 50%, because the way the policies are drafted, the languages are very ambiguous. So one of the important suggestions I have is for AtmaNirbhar, we should have a kind of a cell, AtmaNirbhar cell, if you like, only to provide information regarding all these multiple schemes, and sometimes they can even be conflicting. We don't know which scheme has come first, which has to be first looked at and then apply the other scheme. What is the percentage of IPR if the design is in India, and so on. So these ambiguities have to be cleared right from the government side. So I suggest to have a AtmaNirbhar cell kind of structure, and preferably they're headed by a person who has past entrepreneurial experience. That would probably help in this area.
Okay. Thank you, Vishwakumara. Mr. Govindswamy, you're last. I tried to randomize it. There's only a 20% chance you would end up again at the last, but unfortunately. But hopefully, the last but not the least, maybe you have something very insightful to tell us.
So sorry, I'm really sorry. Before we go for the request for the chairperson, we have a few questions in the questions box, sir. So probably can have a look at them.
So where is the? Okay, let me figure this out. So I have questions. I click on questions, and then I have a whole bunch of sessions, right? Opening remarks, keynotes 2. Then I go to panel discussion 2.
The last one, you need to click on that, and you'll find the questions.
I see no questions yet.
You don't find any questions there?
No, I don't find any questions. In panel discussion 2, there's a small arrow to the right. I click on that and I see no questions.
No, do you find the panel discussion 2 ongoing in that?
Yes, I find panel discussion 2 ongoing, and it is ongoing. Everything else is completed.
Are you clicking, after you click that, there are 2 options, open questions and answered. Do you find
yes,
that?
I have clicked. Oh, it says ask a question.
No, at the top you'll have open questions and answered. Do you find that?
I find open questions and answered. So that is panel discussion 1. On panel discussion 2, I just find the ask a question. I don't find open question and answers.
Right. Okay. In that case, I think I can read out the questions for you, or I'll see what.
So why don't you read out the questions in sequence at the end after Mr. Govindswamy makes his remarks?
Definitely, I'll do that.
Okay.
Right. Sorry for that, Mr. Govindswamy, sir. Yes, you can continue.
Okay. Sure, no worries. Yeah. So I think I just want to compliment, Vishwa's comment. I think telecom sector, we all know that it's very high technology intensive, and that obviously results in very high capital intensive. To really build products, to meet our AtmaNirbhar as well as for the global markets, right? It's a twofold approach. One, very capital intensive, so we need to have an investment ecosystem enabled for that. And also it's a long term, it takes years to build products, whether on the client side or on the network side. So it's the confidence level for the global investment community is fairly low. Okay, I'm developing this technology in India for the AtmaNirbhar or the global market. We are not seeing excitement in the investment community. That need to be addressed. Like Vishwa pointed out, maybe a cell could be a good approach. Tell us there is a great market opportunity. We can build quality products, and the products can be for the Indian market as well as for the global market, right? And this needs different investment thinking, right? You need one long, heavy capital investment to really build quality products, right? Which is very big investment in capital intensive. And second important thing is it takes years to build this technology, right? And that's very important to be addressed that through a team effort, and that's part of one of the, it's basically echoing other panelists' suggestion is to bring this aspect that will bring the complete startup community to build up around this, and they build products around that. So that's sort of my top suggestion. And also want to comment on Nitin's thing, right? So yes, we are actually from MBit side, we are developing the chip side, which is basically something like trying to like Qualcomm, right, where we build thin modems and the associated chipsets in India to build for the Indian client device Indian market as well as for the global market, right? And that's just want to give comment to Nitin. So that's sort of I just conclude here.
Okay, thank you. I will just summarize all the suggestions. I think Pathak ji from DOT had a suggestion for the companies to come up with unique problems unique to India that we can solve because we are right here close to the customers. And Abhijeet talked about the difficulty of finding out exactly what customers need. I think that's a problem all product companies face. We need to test our ideas with customers before we start building, and that's important. That maybe there is some mechanism to put startups together with customers, but that's crucial to any startup or to any idea to get the customer feedback. The rest of the speakers were really making suggestions for something that government or government-related organizations have to do, or the country at large needs to do. So Nitin's suggestion was that the country needs an ecosystem to do all the complementary technologies that are needed to build up your product. And Akhilesh's suggestion was really for TSDSI, and Akhilesh, we should take this up together in TSDSI, that TSDSI should do something about getting clarity on the royalty outgo and IPR policy and so on. So maybe I think that's a good suggestion. We should do that. I think Vishwa talked about the need for encouragement to invest in IPR and products. And I think Govindswamy had the same thing. There is no excitement in the venture community to invest in tech companies. So I think getting money to invest, developing the ecosystem, and having a solid IPR policy which addresses the problems of startups are all problems that we need to solve as a community. And of course, we need to know the customer, and we need to find India-specific problems for which only we will find unique solutions. So that's how I summarize the panel. Since I still cannot see the questions, I have to request the organizers to post the questions to the panelists.
Dr. Kumar, if you allow, maybe I can read the questions.
Sure.
So the first question, which was asked by the DG, Dr. Pamela Kumar, what is the role of standards for AtmaNirbhar mission? How important is it to participate and contribute to global standards?
Okay, did Pamela direct the question at any particular speaker?
Not really.
Okay, who volunteers first? So I will answer. So the question is, what is the role of standards?
For AtmaNirbhar Bharat, AtmaNirbhar mission.
Okay, so I think the role of standards is, if you have a standard, we have a comfort that customers will adopt it. In the absence of standards, we have to sort of market the solution much more. Secondly, we may only find a solution to a piece of the problem. The standards ensures all the interoperating. So you could build a phone, you could build a base station, you could build a core network, and you could build an app, but the standard ensures that it will fit into the rest of the ecosystem. So I think, and if we have India-specific applications, which may not be India-specific, we thought of it in the Indian context, only if it's part of a standard, either an Indian standard or a global standard, it will encourage companies to build solutions to that need, because it enlarges the market dramatically compared to a proprietary solution. So that's my answer. Any of the panelists want to add anything?
May I?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So, of course, having a standard is very important for self-reliant India, because otherwise nothing would happen, because everything will go for a toss. And in that standard, if we have the opportunity, because standard means the requirements and technical specifications, and if in that set of requirements and specifications, we have some play to exploit the IP we create locally within India, then that is wonderful. But if that is not there, we should look forward to how to have future versions where we should be able to get our IP and technical specifications accordingly modified. That's my take.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we should go to the next question.
Okay. So next question is Abhijeet. Is it from Abhijeet to Abhijeet? Abhijeet, okay, yes, correct. It is addressed to Abhijeet. Is it really true that Indian operators are as open as you seem to suggest for our startups and disaggregation? What has changed their mindset?
Yeah, thanks, Akhilesh. So, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, so in India, we are around 2 years still behind, and I don't think I know of any deployment which is like disaggregated and like with startup. Of course, they're using a solution from startups, but like specifically related to disaggregation, I think we are still 2 years behind. We need at least 2 more years to reach that state. But the first setup, like having an R&D team within the telecom operators, is already there. They are working with startups on what kind of solutions can fit in. Not necessarily they are commercially working. What I mean to say is that they are engaging with them to see what kind of solution, where to fit in. As I mentioned earlier, pockets of the network, which is redundant. I mean, even if there is a device which goes down, still the network doesn't go for a toss because you have redundancy. That mainly on the access side, and which impacts less. So that kind of pocket of the network is where I think startups have a play initially. Obviously, they need to have a good support system. So, but things are moving in that direction, and especially when I talked about operators, I also included the internet service provider. I see the internet ISPs, which are like you can say little comparatively smaller than the bigger telecom operator. They are much more open for such technologies. They have seen it being if you see the press release, I mean, they have been seeing that like across the world globally, there has been solutions, disaggregated solutions, which are being used, and they similarly SDN related solutions being used. They are most of the tier 2 or the internet service providers are much more keen, and in fact they are much more excited on that, and they are probably ahead of the telcos in that way. Like they may actually deploy it sooner, maybe next year. So I'm pretty excited about this disaggregation, especially with the ISPs. And telcos, I think their network is much bigger. They have a much bigger team overall. So they may take around 2 years or 2-3 years to actually reach the deployment stage. But definitely looking very positive.
Okay. Thank you, Abhijeet. I think we can now stop new questions. But Akhilesh, since you have asked access to the questions, how many questions are there in the box?
I think maybe one more. There is a good question.
Okay, so if there are one or two more, please complete them. But I think we'll stop taking new questions.
Yeah, there are only one or two. So to Mr. Pathak, which spectrum allocation is planned for private 5G networks? What is the current status of these trials in India, sir?
I think I have replied also.
Yeah.
That we have not received any application for 5G trials in private network. So I think let there be application, then we can discuss this aspect. And this spectrum aspect is being discussed in different forums. So I think I request them to work with that. Because I won't be able to, give here a reply. But I think definitely we are open that there should be some request, and we'll be happy if we just get what is the global best practices in private network, what is the frequency band in which it's being used worldwide.
Okay. So maybe of the two questions from Uttara Samant, we can take one. So I'm randomly picking in line with RK Pathak. Why do you think India-based vendors not requesting 5G PN trials need increased awareness, dynamic standards development?
Again, question for Pathak ji. Okay.
No, I think I already replied that I think there is some awareness is required.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would like to reply to one of the one can say suggestion of Mr. Nitin and VVDN, that already MIT has come up with a scheme of spec, which is basically funding 25% subsidy. That is the extension of, one can say, modified special incentive scheme. But this time not the end product, but the specific components and semiconductor. So that is covered. I think anyone who is interested in availing that benefit can apply to MIT. That is open-ended scheme, not like a PLI scheme. So that scheme is already in place, and this time it's not for the end product, but for the components and semiconductor.
Okay.
Okay. Akhilesh, is there any other question?
There are three more questions. One quickly, what will be the killer application that will drive 5G adoption in India?
I can take a stab at it. The answer is no one knows, because no one knew what the killer application was for any of the Gs that preceded it. Okay, for 2G, it was supposed to be only a better voice, but it was SMS. For 3G, it happened to be email, but that was never under consideration. For 4G, it was all supposed to be all IP, but it turned out the smartphone changed everything, and we have a plethora of apps which nobody knew in 2010. So similarly, we have no idea what the killer app is for 5G.
Right. Yeah, it's already answered. I think Pathak ji also answered. Same. So the last one, maybe working at different forums required. What is the best? Oh, that's a comment. So I think there's no other question.
Okay, excellent. I now request the organizer to arrange our pictures, because I know that Bindu usually likes to take a screenshot. So maybe there's a way to do that so that we all mark our attendance in this panel. While you do that, I will thank all the panelists and all the speakers in the whole session, actually, not just the panelists, and also the panelists, particularly in this session, for all your thought-provoking ideas, coming prepared and spending Friday evening with us. I've seen the audience count of 63 pretty much static throughout the session. So I'm delighted that 63 people chose to spend the entire evening here with us. So I think it shows that there's a lot of interest in this whole topic. And I think TSDS has done well to organize this. We have a lot of learning. So thank you all. Have a good rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bindu, is there anything else? Do we conclude the whole thing? Or is there any other concluding remarks? I think there is something after this, right?
Sir, yes, sir. I'm going to bring Mr. Sharath onto the stage. Please give me a
Okay,
moment.
fine. So I will now sign off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening.
Yes, we have Mr. Sharath on stage.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been such a remarkable evening, and actually such a remarkable 5 evenings now. And I have this great privilege to thank all the participants, make a small summary of where we started these sessions, maybe on Monday, when the theme of technologies for the digitally driven world was put in front of the inaugural. It's been quite remarkable, frankly. We are feeling a bit overwhelmed at TSDSI for what this outcome or this iteration of the session has turned out to be. We are now totally an ICT-driven society. And with what happened with COVID, this particular theme and its impact on our lives became even more clear. The Chairman Digital Commission and Secretary Telecom, Mr. Prakash, inaugurated the session this time. I remember he congratulated TSDSI on the global impact it has started to make in its young 5 years with the IMT 2020, TSDSI RIT getting accepted into that, and the support for NAVIC and all the transposition work that it has done. I recall he said that many of the developing countries around here look up to India for what India is doing in the world of standards now. And its focus on standards and promoting standards-driven research is quite a significant approach. He also complimented TSDSI on the timely release of the white paper on telecom startups, which he very graciously promised to help develop. The conference has covered so many topics, the roadmap 2030 with the India context, spectrum, open standards, AI/ML, rural and remote connectivity, data management and privacy. I remember what Mr. Madan wrote on one of the chat groups, saying that it has really been a tech deep dive. So many sessions, 120, 160 people attending these sessions. It's been really remarkable, and these sessions that were going into 9:30 p.m. in the night, and still audiences at the level of 80 and 100. I think some of the takeaways from the TSDSI roadmap, the formal technical topic proposals, open initiatives, they are all work in the right direction. The Spectrum had Omura-san and people from the US, insights into pilots, trials, and strategies that have been adopted by other countries. We just saw some questions a few minutes back. The local 5G concept from Japan, and then the connectivity for rural and remote areas, the discussion with Brazil, with the 50-kilometer radius and 1.2 Mbps 5G trial that they have done. It's just got so much value into the, let's just say, experience and what can be the future. The question that could 5G remote actually be the fourth pillar of IMT 2020? In the other sessions, security sessions, there was such a nice debate. We had the ST13 working party chair himself introduced quantum key to the audience. The CTO of ST participated in the session that discussed the National Trust Center, an initiative with which India is clearly ahead of the curve. I think it becomes more or less like the Aadhaar system. Data management and privacy in the digital era, the rich panel discussion, the experiences from the globe, utility of contact tracing versus privacy, fantastic sessions on open source. I think that provided and threw up so many potential options for deeper dives into specific areas, potential for Indian design solutions that can be easily deployed globally. Some of this can result in formal studies in TSDSI. Now we have just seen the AtmaNirbhar Bharat session with such a rich set of contributions from how customer-focused research is necessary and how IP must be cataloged and managed just to provide a true view of the lie of the land or the costs of SEPs as was discussed. In quick summary, TSDSI is truly pleased with these discussions and also the outcomes of this tech deep dive, and grateful to all the speakers, many of whom burned the midnight oil or a very early morning. So a very grateful thanks to all the speakers. Next year's edition will be notified in due course of time, but from looks of it, I think it's going to be another blockbuster. In the meantime, TSDSI will continue its technical work within the two study groups and also the transposition and collaborate with other SDOs, Indian companies and startups. We invite them all to come and join hands to develop better standards that take us, India, to global leadership in this digitally driven world. Special word of thanks to TSDSI members, committees, secretariat, and AirMeet, who have worked tirelessly to bring us along this truly, it's a blockbuster edition of Tech Deep Dive. So with that, I'm going to thank you all and say good night and look forward to another fantastic year in the coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharath. All right. Thank you so much, all the delegates who have been attending this conference for the last 5 days. And we are sure that it was very informative, and some of the panel discussions were very entertaining as well, like audience were glued to this session. Thank you so much. Looking forward to having all your support for the next conferences and wherever we are going to meet. Have a great time. MCRK signing off for AirMeet. And with that, we are going to end the session. However, social launch will be open for quite some time, and you people can network across the social launch. Once the session is over, you can take any of the tables wherever you like to network. You can network. That's it for now. Sharath sir, do you like to give any concluding notes, or we can end the session? All right.
Yeah, you can end the session. All the best for the next.
Thank you so much, sir. With that, we are ending the session. Have a great time.
Thank you.